Good evening, listeners. You're tuned into the ghostly broadcast, Paranormal Station. I am your host, Timothy. Though my farm has an extensive basement, it is not where I tend to dwell often, and with good reason. Basements were traditionally the undercroft of homes where the sun's warmth couldn't penetrate, a means of cold storage to keep food from spoiling. But deep in the earth where darkness dwells, spirits can lurk in shadows. Tonight, we'll wander down into the basements of North America, where our contributors witness just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Our first testimony. Dear Timothy, I have some fond memories of growing up in my childhood home, but they will forever be soured by what happened to my dad. I was the oldest of 3 boys and was always eager to help him around the house. It was my dad's childhood home, which had been the family for generations before him. He inherited it when his parents passed, and despite my mom's reluctance, we made it our home as well. My mother was always complaining about how old the house was. Floors groaned, pipes leaked, and electricity constantly tripped out. It caused so many arguments between them. "We can't keep living like this," Mother would scream at him when he got home from work. "Where are we going to find a place big enough for all of us, huh? Are you going to go out and get a job to pay for it?" my dad would retort. On and on their arguments went. The older I got, the colder my parents became, and a dark shadow crept over the house. All the happiness was sucked away, and my mother became a spiteful shell of her former self. One night the power tripped. My mom and dad yelled at each other in their room before I heard my dad's footsteps pounding down the hallway. I knew he was coming to my room, so I stepped out, ready to lend him a hand. "Hold the light for me, will you, Danny?" he asked. I obliged and followed him down to the basement. He opened the fuse box while I aimed the flashlight at it for him. He found the breaker and switched it back. The hallway light shone through the open door at the top of the stairs. We were both on our way back to bed when the power tripped again. "Roger," my mother yelled venomously. "I'm on it," my dad sighed. "Come on, Danny." We returned to the basement, and my dad switched over the breaker again. The lights turned back on, and we made our way back upstairs. Before leaving the basement, I heard the breaker trip again. "God damn it," my dad cursed. "Sorry, Danny," he said, apologizing for swearing in front of me. He walked down and flicked the breaker for a 3rd time. This time he waited a few seconds to make sure it stayed on. Satisfied that it wouldn't trip, he stepped back from the box. As he did, the breaker tripped. My dad grunted and opened the fuse box, slamming its door against the wall. This time, as his hand flicked the switch over, a massive flash lit up the basement, and my dad was thrown backwards towards me. "Dad!" I yelled. I shone my flashlight around. I could see puffs of smoke and I could smell burnt hair. I couldn't see where my dad had landed, so I shone the torch around the fuse box. I saw him standing frozen, his eyes white and his face stuck in an open gape of horror. I took a step towards him and felt something soft under my foot. I looked down and saw my dad's lifeless body staring up at me. I looked back at the figure standing at the fuse box. My father's ghost stood there, unmoving. I saw a black claw clasp on his shoulder. 2 beady yellow eyes opened behind him, and a large fanged grin smiled at me before it disappeared, taking my dad's spirit with it. My mom's entire demeanor changed after that. She claimed his life insurance, sold the house, and moved us all out of state. While packing, she caught me looking at some of her old leather-bound books. adorned with pentagrams and strange markings. I asked them what they were. "Not for you," she barked dismissively, before shoving them into a box where I never saw them again. "Yours sincerely, Danny." "Thank you for your testimony, Danny. My condolences to you and your brothers for your loss. Weaponing spirits and demons is rare, but it can happen. However, they will always return to take what is owed." Our next testimony comes from Yvonne in Kentucky. "Dear Timothy, I've always been the odd black sheep of my family. I don't blame them for it. I know I was hard to get on with, but it made for a lonely childhood. Many people hate spiders for being creepy, alien-looking things, but I've always loved them. The hate they get comes more from a lack of understanding than anything else. In actual fact, they're friendly little pest controllers, even to a fault. I used to get bullied a lot by the other neighborhood kids, so I found myself alone most days in the summer, exploring the woods and playing on my own. One day, I came across an old abandoned house a few streets away. I stepped in to see it utterly bare of furnishings and reeking of mold. Walking into the kitchen, I saw a giant house spider frozen in the sink. It must have gotten stuck because it sprinted up the side and slipped back down towards the drain as I approached it. I gently coaxed it onto my hand and let it go on the floor. Paused briefly, then crawled down a gap between the floorboards. Curious, I headed into the basement to see if there were any more. It was packed up to the rafters with cobwebs. Hundreds of spiders crawled around, scrambling to hide from the behemoth human coming down the basement stairs. I marveled at the expanse of this spider sanctuary. Over the summer, I spent more and more time in that basement. I'd bring bugs I'd collected in old takeout boxes. Over time, they started to recognize me. They weren't scared when they heard me coming down the basement stairs. Some would even crawl from their webs and wait at my feet. Being the weird kid that hid in the old creepy house started to draw attention from the wrong kind of kids. One afternoon, I was walking home from a day with the spiders when this girl and her friends shouted over at me. "Hey, freak," she yelled. "What are you doing in the old Bailey house, huh? Sacrificing little animals?" She wasn't entirely wrong if you consider bugs as animals. I ignored her and kept walking home. She caught up to me and grabbed my shoulder. "Hey, I'm talking to you, freak," she said, turning me around and shoving me to the floor. Before I could scramble back to my feet, the bigger girl was on top of me, shoving my face into the dirt so hard that it split the skin on my eyebrow. The girl and her friends wailed on me with their fists and feet. I was powerless to stop them. The next day, after my mom had tended to my black eye, I returned to my basement sanctuary with my spiders. I headed down into the basement, where I felt safe. The spiders crawled down from their webs and stood at my feet, ready for whatever bugs I brought them. But this time, a colossal mass of slike piled up in the middle of the floor. I carefully stepped over towards the cocoon of silk. It was shaped like a person. I knelt down to get a better look, and that's when it hit me. Behind the strands of spider webs was the gaunt, dried-out face of the big girl from yesterday, staring up with glossy, dead eyes. I never told anyone what happened to her, and I didn't return to the basement again. Despite all the search parties, they never found her. By the time they did check the old Bailey house, the spiders must have consumed the rest of her. We moved shortly after, as did a lot of families with kids. The neighborhood didn't feel safe anymore. But only I knew the truth, Timothy. It was perfectly safe for me and my spiders. Yours, Yvonne. Thank you for that testimony, Yvonne. The natural world and paranormal realms are intertwined, along with all of the creatures that walk in both planes. Treat them with respect, and you'll receive the same in kind. Our next testimony comes from Laurel in Iowa. Be warned, listeners, the following testimony contains references to abuse and say, "Dear Timothy, coming to terms with the trauma that me and my siblings endured has been a long and painful journey. Now that I'm older and wiser, I feel ready to have our story told. My mom and dad were part of the Quiverful movement, a cult of Christian fanatics who believe that God has ordained them to have as many kids as they physically can. While affluent families like the Duggars made it look easy on their TV show, a poor family raising 14 kids is not a healthy environment. Every kid was responsible for their immediate younger sibling. By the time I was 5, I already had my own little sister to raise. She had a 2-year-old brother to care for, and he had an infant sister palmed off to him from mom. The house was a disgusting hovel. Most of us were constantly sick and never saw a doctor. Our dad worked at a factory nearby, and Mom spent most of her time working for the church. The only time they were present was to dole out draconian punishments. I was 6, the first time that one of my older brothers abused me. I didn't understand what happened until I told my sister Charlotte. She was one of the eldest and more like a mom to most of us than our real mother. I heard her confronting Mom about it late one night while we were in bed. I heard yelling from her and both my parents. There was screaming and clattering, which wasn't uncommon in our house. The next day, though, Charlotte was gone. My parents started to take a more active interest in our discipline after that, and not for the better. Even the youngest weren't spared the beatings. "If you don't get with the program, you'll end up in the basement with your sister," my mom would scream at us. We all knew that Charlotte was locked down there, which terrified everyone into silence. My older brother became more brazen with the rest of us girls, and no one dared speak to our parents about it. One night, I felt a hand rouse me awake. "Laurel," Charlotte whispered. "Charlotte?" I asked. "They let you out of the basement?" She shushed me with her finger and beckoned me to follow her. Together, we tiptoed downstairs into the kitchen. The basement door was open, and she led me down the stairs into its cold darkness. I could smell something rotten, a sickly sweet smell that made me want to throw up. Charlotte kept leading me to a pile of garbage bags in the corner of the room. "I'm so sorry, Laurel, but you have to open the bag. I can't do it for you," Charlotte said softly with tears in her eyes. I did as she asked and pulled the bag open. Staring up at me were the glazed, dead eyes of my older sister. I turned, but the Charlotte standing next to me was gone. Only her bagged-up, dismembered corpse remained. I grabbed my little sister from our bed and tried to get her to leave. She refused to leave without her little brother, and we ran out into the night together. We were found by a kind man at the side of the road who took us to the local police station. After that, I never saw my parents or other siblings again. I did some research after college and found out that most of us were separated into different foster families. The youngest of us were adopted and would probably never recognize any of us. It's bittersweet, but I know it's for the best. I only wish Charlotte was here to see us. She saved me, Timothy. She saved all of us from the nightmare. Kind regards, Laurel. Thank you for sharing your testimony, Laurel. What you went through was horrific, and I'm deeply moved by your ability to share it. I wish you and your siblings the best. Our final testimony of the evening comes from Cece in Nebraska. Dear Timothy, I am writing to you and your listeners to warn them. I don't want anyone to make the same mistakes that I did. My grandmother passed away when I was 16. My parents and I went through her house, determining what we wanted to keep and what we should sell or donate. She had no one else, so it was up to us to sift through her effects. I was down in the basement, rifling through boxes to see if I could find anything cool when I saw something slotted in behind old metal shelves. Whatever it was the size of a door and covered in a sheet. I hauled it out from behind the shelves and propped it up against the wall. I pulled off the sheet, revealing an old mirror trimmed with beautifully carved ornate gold leaf edges. My reflection moved with me as I stepped back to admire it, but then it stopped and smiled. "Hello, C. You look just like your grandmother," it said wryly in my voice. "What the fuck?" I yelled as I jumped back. My reflection stood unmoving. "How is this possible? This has to be a trick, right?" "It's no trick, Cece. I'm just a kind old spirit," my reflection said. Did you know my grandma?" I asked. "I did," the spirit said. "I helped her a lot. We were quite good friends," it spoke. "I'm sure we could be friends, Cece. I could help you too." Help me how?" I asked, raising my eyebrows. The spirit lifted theirs as well. "It's your 4th driving test this afternoon, right? Still can't seem to pass it." It pouted. "I could pass it for you. And I get trapped in the mirror, right?" "No deal," I said. "Not at all. This mirror is my vessel. You'll wake up when I leave. All I want is the rest of the night to enjoy myself, and then your body is all yours once more," it said. I considered it for a second. If this was real and I wasn't hallucinating, then all I was giving up was a few hours. It was already 3 in the afternoon anyway. "Okay, deal," I said. The world around me went instantly black. It was as if someone had flicked a light switch. I opened my eyes and saw the bare walls, metal toilet and cold bars of a jail cell. My head pounded and my ears rang. My whole body ached. I got up and walked to the bars. A police officer was sitting at a desk, sipping on coffee. "Hey, where am I? What happened to me?" I asked pleadingly. The cop sighed, got up and shouted to a colleague. "Hey, O'Brien, the hit and run is awake," he said as he walked out of my sight. I shouted after him, but he ignored me. My parents showed up an hour later with a lawyer, and I was led out of the cell to an interview room. The lawyer sat down opposite me and my parents. "Okay, see, it's very important to you tell me exactly what you remember," the lawyer said. "Nothing. I don't remember anything," I stammered. The lawyer sighed, shook his head, and began to explain. "CC, you were arrested last night around 3 a.m. You stole your dad's car, crashed into another vehicle, and fled the scene. Your blood alcohol was .38. Frankly, it's a miracle it didn't kill you," he explained. No, I didn't. It wasn't me," I screamed. The evidence was insurmountable, however. Even though I wasn't present in spirit, my body was driving the car. I'd killed 2 people that night in a hit and run, and my life beyond then was ruined forever. I was charged, convicted, and served the rest of my teenage years in juvenile detention. So please, Timothy, don't make deals with spirits. They will take your life and leave you with nothing but consequences. My parents sold the mirror and the rest of my grandmother's effects. As far as I'm aware, it's still out there. If any of your listeners find it, smash it to pieces for me. Please. Yours, CC. Thank you for your testimony, CC. Always proceed with caution, listeners, when you are confronted with spirits. They crave what they don't have that only the living can provide them, and they will use any tactic to get it. This concludes this evening's testimonies. Listeners, if you enjoyed this ghostly broadcast, then please like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon to be notified of our latest broadcasts. I've been your host, Timothy, and you've been listening to the ghostly broadcast, Paranormal Station. Tread lightly in the dark basements of the world, listeners, and always keep your light warm and close.